We got a treat for you guys today. And, as I introduce the man you're about to hear this morning, I could say 100 things to you this morning. I could say something like Greg Surratt is the pastor of one of the largest churches, most influential churches in America. I can tell you that he is the co-founder and president of the ARC, which is a church planting organization which to date has planted over 500 life-giving churches, one of which Mosaic is a part of. I can tell you that Greg is an incredible boss, whom Pastor Naeem and I had the pleasure of working for over 10 years ago. I could tell you all of those things, but I won't. What I will tell you is that 20 years ago, a mom invited her drugged-out, college-age son to church. And she kept on inviting him, and he kept on saying no. And out of desperation, this mom said one day, she said, "Son, there are pretty girls at this church." To which he responded, "When do we go?" And so 20 years ago, when I walked into Seacoast Church, I gave my life to Jesus. Seacoast is the place that I met forgiveness. It's the place I met my calling. Seacoast is where I met my wife. My mom was right. And so of all the things I could tell you about Greg Surratt, I'll just tell you this one thing. He is passionate about people coming to know Jesus. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And so this morning, we're actually doing a pastor swap. Pastor Naeem is in Seacoast. He's speaking there, and Pastor Greg is speaking here. So will you help me, beautiful people of Mosaic, would you help me give a warm, warm welcome to Pastor Greg Surratt?
Thanks, man. Thanks. Good morning. It's good to be here. Some of you are disappointed already. I'm not Pakistani, nor am I tall. I don't know how I fit here. But I love Todd and Shannon. Don't you guys love Todd and Shannon and Naeem and Ashley? They're like our kids. They really are. In fact, our kids are great friends with these guys. In fact, I noticed one of my sons in your video here. It was just going, I just love these guys. And it's going to be here, as Todd said, that Naeem is at Seacoast today. We're kind of doing a swap, and he's trying to get us straightened out in 1 week. And they needed somebody else besides me there. So I'm here, and let me tell you a story. Can I tell you a story? There's an old preacher who was dying. And, well, before I tell the story, I need to introduce some people. I'm sorry. My wife is here, my lovely wife. Deb, would you wave? And we spent the night last night and stayed downtown and got out, walked around, got some good food and a little Irish pub downtown, and then it started to rain, and we said we need to go inside somewhere, so we went bowling. Anybody ever been bowling? It's been decades since we went bowling, and it was a beautiful sight to see. We have 4 children. They all live around us in Charleston, and the best thing we have is 14 grandkids. I want to show them to you. I got a picture right here. And they're all about the same age. They're 8 years old and under. They all live right around us. And we do blonde. And if you want to know what our life is like, just check out a daycare center. Just actually, literally, go check out a class, bring them home with you. And that's what our life is like, but we love it. All right, now let me tell you a story. So there's an old preacher, and he's dying. And he sent a message for his banker and his lawyer, both church members, to come to his home. When they arrived, they were ushered up to his bedroom, and as they entered the room, the preacher held out his hands and motioned for them to sit on each side of the bed. The preacher grasped their hands and sighed contentedly, smiled and stared at the ceiling, and for a time no one said anything. But the banker and the lawyer were touched and flattered that the old preacher would ask them to be with him during his final moments. They were also puzzled because the preacher had never given any indication that he liked either one of them. Now, they both remembered his many long and uncomfortable sermons about greed and covetousness that made them squirm in their seats. And finally, the banker said, "Preacher, why did you ask the two of us to come?" The old preacher said weakly, Jesus died between two thieves, and that's how I want to go too. That's pretty funny, isn't it? So we're going to talk about greed today. You guys are in a series, emojis or something like that. Yeah, Emojions. Yeah. Do you like emojis or whatever that you put? They have them for everything. You can even give somebody the finger now with the latest Apple deal. How great is that? But one that's not on there is greed. I was looking for one. There is not. I don't think there is one for greed because it's not very popular. You don't want to be greedy. And so today I'm going to talk about greed. That's what I've been assigned. I didn't want to. I wanted to talk about something fun and nice, but Naeem said, you talk about greed. I said, okay, I'll do it. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to take good notes because we all know greedy people. We know greedy businessmen. We know greedy brother-in-laws. We know greedy bankers. The dollar is their god. They worship at the temple of commerce. It's never enough for them. They always want more at the expense of all of us. But I just want to tell you, this will probably not apply to anybody here today, okay? The early service, yes. Not this service. Nobody here today, but you may have a friend. You know somebody, right? And so what we're talking about today will be something that will block them from experiencing lasting joy and peace. So you take good notes. Will you do that? Just take good notes and don't point at anybody as we talk today. So, what I want to do, really I'm excited about doing this, and it will apply to every one of you. And you won't like parts of it. Parts of it you will, and it may save your life, and it may restore joy to you today. Would you agree with me that that's going to be good? Now, I just want to give you a Bible study. They gave me about 12 minutes. I mean, I preach for about 45. You can't even do an introduction in 20 minutes for the love of God. And so I'm going to talk as fast as I can. And we're going to do a Bible study about a grumpy old prophet, kind of like me. You get grumpy when you get older. And his name is Elisha. Say Elisha together. Elisha. And we're going to talk about a story of Elisha and his assistant, Gehazi. And what happened in the story, we're going to read it to you, is there was a famine in the land, and God worked a miracle, okay? One day a guy brings an offering to Elisha. A sack of fresh grain and 20 loaves of bread is his offering. It's his first fruits offering. He's in the law, you make some money, you bring first fruits, and so he did, and he brought it to Elisha. And Elisha tells his assistant, Gehazi, to feed all of the people that are hanging around Elisha, and there's lots of them. Here's what Gehazi says. What? His servant exclaimed, feed 100 people with only this? Who does that sound like? You ever read a story like that in the New Testament? Jesus? Okay, this is a type of that. Same thing happened. But Elisha repeated, give it to the people so they can eat, for this is what the Lord says, everyone will eat. That's a promise from God. And there will even be some left over. And when they gave it to the people, there was plenty for all and some left over, just as the Lord had promised. Now, that's the beginning of the story. Now, the next chapter tells a story about a man named Naaman. Naaman's a very wealthy military guy, okay? And he's from another country, and he has leprosy. Somebody tells him about Elisha. He says there's this preacher that heals people. And so he gets a bunch of people to come with him. He brings gifts, 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, 10 sets of clothing. What does that mean? In today's economy, that would be $4 million. Now, if you're a preacher, how you know you're going to take that appointment, okay? Yeah, I got time. I'm real busy. This guy's got $4 million for an offering, okay? So he goes to Elisha's house, and Elisha doesn't even come out to talk to him. Did I mention he's grumpy? He's in the back room. He says, go tell him to dunk 7 times in the Jordan River, which ticks Naaman off. He gets mad. He doesn't even come out to talk, he says. I expected him to at least do a Benny Hinn, just do one of these and fall over or whatever, And we've got better rivers at home. I could have stayed home and dunked in a river 7 times. This thing's muddy and dirty. And one of his homies said, if he'd asked you to do something hard, you'd have done it, wouldn't you? What do you got to lose? He says, well, you're probably right. So he does it, dunked 7 times, and he's healed. And so they go back to find Elisha to give him the gifts, and Elisha says, nope, not today. I'm not taking anything. Elisha blesses him, and he's on his way. Next verse. So Gehazi, who was who? That was his servant. The servant of Elisha, the man of God, said to himself, my master should not have let this guy get away without accepting any of his gifts. How many of you would say that's probably pretty smart? Okay. He says, as surely as the Lord lives, I will chase after him and get a little something for myself. And so Gehazi has a bad case of gotta have it. And so he can't let this guy go. He's consumed with what? Greed. Let me give you, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 5 things that greed does. I'm going to give you 3 different kinds of greed. And then at the very last, in about a minute and a half, I'm going to give you what you can do about it. Okay? All right, so here's what greed does. In this story, greed consumes you. It consumes you. Have you ever wanted something so bad you couldn't get it out of your mind? You couldn't think of anything else? Love it, like it, can't find it, gotta have it. Anybody ever been that way? Oh no, you're not going to respond at all to this. Huh? Yeah. Gehazi can't get this guy's bling out of his mind. $4 million. Somebody said greed is a bottomless pit which exhausts the person in an endless effort to satisfy the need without ever reaching satisfaction. Here's what the Bible says. Just as death and destruction are never satisfied, so human desire is never satisfied. It's insatiable. When you are absolutely consumed about buying and getting something, it could be greed, because greed consumes you. And so here's what Gehazi does. He goes off after Naaman, and when Naaman saw Gehazi running after him, he climbed down from his chariot and went to meet him. Is everything okay? Yes, but my master has sent me to tell you that 2 young prophets from the hill country of Ephraim have just arrived. How do you know that is a lie? His master doesn't even know he's there, so he makes up a story. He would like 75 pounds of silver and 2 sets of clothing to give to them. Right, yeah. So here's the second thing greed does. It consumes you, and it opens the door to do things that you never would have done before. He lies. How much money does he want? $35,000 in today's money. It happens when you want something so bad that you'll lie and deceive others about it. A friend asks you a question about something you're thinking about buying or investing in or already have bought and invested in, and you lie. You tell them it's not worth what it's worth. You lie about the price. Somebody's given it to me. You know, all this kind of stuff. You lie and deceive, and if that's the case, it could be greed. Let's go to the next one. He says, by all means, Naaman says, take twice as much silver. And he gave him 2 sets of clothing, tied up the money in 2 bags, sent 2 of his servants to carry the gifts for Gehazi. But when they arrived at the citadel, Gehazi took the gifts from the servants and sent them in back. Why? Because he lied. He doesn't want them around when he goes and hides the gifts inside the house. Third thing greed does is cause us to hide things. Are you taking good notes? No, you're not. Take out your phone, go to the notes section. You need this. Somebody around you needs this. The third thing it does is it causes you to hide things. Why? Because nobody wants to admit being greedy. It's not cool. I said that earlier. There is no emoji for greed. It's just not a cool way to be. The band Imagine Dragons, in their song Demons, says, I want to hide the truth, I want to shelter you, but the beast inside, there's nowhere we can hide. No matter what we breed, we still are made of greed. This is my kingdom come. When you find yourself hiding evidence of something, it could be greed because it causes us to hide things. Let's look at the next thing it does. When he went into his master, Elisha asked him, where have you been, Gehazi? Oh, haven't been anywhere. Right. But Elisha asked him, don't you realize that I was there in spirit? This is why you don't want prophets as friends. Because God tells them stuff, okay? Don't you realize I was there in spirit when Naaman stepped down from his chariots? And Gehazi's going, oh, crap right now. Is this the time to receive money and clothing, olives and all that kind of? Is this the time? Circle that in your mind. Is this the time? He says. Here's what greed does is it separates friendships. How many times have you seen that happen? Friends start a business together. Okay? Everything's cool. We're going to go, this is awesome. And the business works. And then greed sets in. It makes you look through. I asked Todd to go get me some of these last night at Lowe's. I'm going to preach with them now. They're goggles. They're me goggles. Can you see that? And so you look weird to everybody else, but to yourself it looks exactly right because all you see is how the world revolves around you. It's me goggles. With our friends, we see me goggles. I have friends that had a band. Oh, we're in it all for one for all until they get a hit song. In fact, one of the songs, I don't even say what it is, but one of the songs that we sing in church and we all just love, got so big, they made so much money on it, they hate each other now because of greed. Families receive an inheritance. That's worse. You know, family receives an inheritance, what's going to happen? There's going to be a fight because greed. Watch the Prince thing work itself out. That's going to be real fun. Successful people are always looking for opportunities to help others. Unsuccessful people are always asking, what's in it for me? That's greed. That's greed. Start being consumed by money, you lie to each other, hide stuff. Pretty soon there's a distance. There's a distance. Number five, greed ruins your life. Greed ruins your life. Look what he says. Because you've done this, you and your descendants will suffer from Naaman's leprosy forever. It's bad enough that it's you. But he says, your kids, remember all those grandkids? They're going to have a tendency toward whatever it is you don't whip. And he says, you're going to suffer from Naaman's leprosy. And when Gehazi left the room, he was covered with leprosy in his skin. Do you see why I didn't want to preach this? Listen, if you follow me on Facebook, Pastor Greg Surratt on Facebook, every Monday morning through Thursday morning, I give a morning encouragement, 10 minutes. I am really an encouraging guy. You're just not going to see it today. I will be. Greed today changed his life tomorrow. Didn't just ruin his life, it ruined his descendants. So think about that. This is so big. This is huge. So huge, this is what Jesus said about in the New Testament. He says, watch out. Anytime it says, watch out or don't be deceived, let me tell you something. Whenever you read that in the Bible, that says you are probably not going to get this. You are probably going to be deceived by this, so you need to watch out. And so he says, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in the abundance of possession. It says, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. So let's give you 3 kinds of greed to be on guard against. Number 1 is stuff we want. Stuff we want. How much trouble has the phrase, I want it and I want it now, gotten you into? Anybody ever gotten into trouble? I want it and I want it now. Willy Wonka said that, or somebody in Willy Wonka. Jesus said, be on guard against it. Is wanting something wrong? No. No, I mean, you can want stuff. I mean, this morning I wanted a Starbucks. Sent somebody to get it. That was a good thing. Okay, that's great. It's no problem. It's not one. But when you say, if I had that, I would be happier, now we're in trouble. We're headed toward trouble. Because then it becomes a form of idolatry, which is finding your identity, your joy, your reason for being in something other than Jesus, and that never ends well. And it can be good things. It could be a relationship. Boy, if I had a relationship with her, oh God, I would be so happy. Words of the great theologian, Garth Brooks. Thank God for unanswered prayers. How many of you could walk through that? But it can be a relationship with guys, girls, people, whatever. It can be a hobby. If I just could, have better golf clubs, I'd be happy. Or your grade point average, or new fishing gear, or an iPad, whatever it is. You elevate them from good to God status. And so you go and you worship in the temple of Belks and Lowe's and Bass Pro and Banana Republic. And it's idolatry. Socrates said, he who is not contented with what he has would not be contented with what he would like to have. Would you agree with that? So when you've got to have those, when you have one of those I've got to have it moments, Jesus says, be on guard with the stuff you want. Now here's the second kind of thing you got to be on guard with, and that's the stuff we have. The stuff we have. Be on guard with the stuff we have. Greed can turn the stuff we have into an idol. When you confuse ownership and stewardship. Say that out loud together. Ownership and stewardship. When you confuse those two, it can become greed. Jesus says, be on guard. You say, well, I work hard for what I have. Man, I work 40 hours, 60 hours a week. For what I have, I can do anything I want to with it. Wrong. Anything you have is what? It's a gift from God. The car you drove in on is a gift from God. The house you live in is a gift from God. The job you have is a gift from God. The clothes you wear is a gift from God. It's all a gift from God. Every good and perfect thing comes down from who? The Father above. And He's loaned it to you to enjoy. He wants you to enjoy your stuff. And He also wants you to manage it for His glory. That's called stewardship. And ownership is tested when He asks you to give it away or let somebody else use it. You might say, well, that stuff didn't have a grip on me. Okay, let's find out. And God asks you to give it away or else let somebody else use it. See, maybe it's money. He says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to give it away. How can I? We just barely have enough. No. Didn't ask if you had enough. I want you to give this much away. Test of ownership or stewardship. Possessions. You want you to give possessions away. Can I talk to you about this? Nobody's like this here at Mosaic, but in Charleston, people give junk away and feel great about it. Oh, we're cleaning out our house. Let's bring our extra junk to the church. Or let's bring it to the food pantry. Or let's bring it to the clothing shelter. Stuff you would never wear. Here's where it's tested. When it's new stuff. God says, that's great. That's awesome. I have use for it over here. No, you don't. Remember the first time this happened to me that I can remember. Deb, remember we were in Northern Illinois. Pastoring in a church in Northern Illinois. We were dirt poor. I mean, we were way below the poverty. We lived on welfare. Thank God for welfare. And somebody got blessed with that. That's awesome. And I had to wear suits every day. I say suits, I had one. I had to wear it every day, and I had to wear it on the weekend. And it had worn out the patches that you put on. You buy them to be cool. We put them on to cover up the wear through the holes, and it had, it's just terrible. So I saved my money for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Remember that, Deb? And I bought a suit down at the Johnny Carson suit store. Cost me $100. It was really nice. And the week before Easter, and I saved up a lot of money, not that much money over a long time. We were at envelope system. I went down and I bought it. I brought it home, and I didn't put it in my closet. Have you ever done that? I hung it outside the closet because I wanted to wake up in the night and just see it. So I woke up in the night this week before Easter, and I saw it, and I felt the Lord say, great job with picking that out. Looks good on you. I want you to give it away. I'm thinking, did I eat bad burritos? What? No, it was God. And the next morning I told Debbie, and she said, you're crazy. I told her who I was going to give it to, and she said, it'll never fit. So I called up the guy, went over to his house. I said, this is crazy, but could you try this on? He said, what do you want me to do? Try it on. I said, just try it on. He said, I don't take charity from a preacher. I said, I will whip you if you don't try it on. So he tried it on. I didn't even like the guy. Did not like the guy at all. And he tried it on. It fit beautifully. Long story, I'll just give you the short of it. It made me love him more. And God was dealing with an issue in his life. It wasn't about me. It wasn't the me goggles. I was a steward of his money. I bought what I thought he wanted me to buy, gave it to somebody, and this broke something in this guy's life. And it was a test, big-time test of stewardship. I passed. I'm not sure if you could. And so Your resistance may indicate greed that Jesus said to be on guard against. Stuff we have, stuff we want. One other kind of greed to guard against is the stuff we're afraid to lose. Greed is also rooted in fear. Gehazi was afraid he wouldn't be enough because there was a famine. And he'd just seen God perform him a miracle of supply by multiplying the offering of bread. And yet he's afraid. A lot of our long-term planning is good. But I found in my own life some of it was based on fear. That I won't have enough. That God won't take care of me later, just like he's taking care of me today. You need to plan, but don't let it be out of fear. It's easy to confuse planning and hoarding. Okay? And so when fear leads to hoarding, greed is hiding in the weeds. Jesus said, be on guard against that. Let me give you, with like 2 minutes left to go. Let me give you, actually I've got 4 minutes. We're good. We're great. This is awesome. How to guard against greed. Let me give you 3 things. 3 things. We did 5 things greed does, 3 things greed looks like. Now let's talk about three ways to guard against greed. Number 1 is learn contentment. Learn contentment. Greed, as we said earlier, is insatiable. Love is blind, greed is insatiable. The definition of insatiable is incapable of being satisfied or appeased. We always want more. We're never satisfied. Somebody asked one time, richest man in the world, at that time said, how much is enough? He said, just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Secular psychology says that is insane. Insane. One of the signs of sanity is satiability, the ability to be satisfied. Greed is a form of insanity. Contentment is a pillar of sanity. Philippians 4 and verse 11, Paul says, I have learned to be what? Content. Content with what? What I have. He said, I've had a lot. That's good. I'm not banging on you if you have a lot. That's great. Are you content with it? I've had little, he said, and I've learned to be content. And then he goes on and say, what is the key to contentment? I can do all things. I can live with a lot and a little through Jesus Christ, my Lord. Have you learned that, or are you still insane? Huh? Let me give you a story. I love this story. Marcinius was a 5th century Christian. He lived in Egypt, and he was fed up with the distractions of the materialistic world, and so he decided to go live in the desert. And he discovers his love and dependency on God. And he comes back to the city. He goes actually to the marketplace, the local mall. And he said this, my heart leapt with joy within me with all the things I saw but did not need. Let me say that again. My heart leapt within me in the marketplace with all the things I saw but did not need. Was that your story at the mall last night? Walked into Belk's, Macy's, Lowe's, Banana Republic. I'm not worshiping here. My heart leapt with all the beautiful stuff that I didn't need. I felt good about that. See, maybe one of the antidotes is to make a blessing list. Just make a list. I have a gratitude journal. Things I'm grateful for. The blessings that I have. Guard against greed by learning contentment. Number 2, pursue community. Pursue community. It's said in the story, Gehazi said to himself. He didn't say to his small group, hey, I'm thinking about, can you believe this? That Elisha, the crabby old prophet I worked for, a guy came to give him a $4 million offering, and he turned it away. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go tell a lie to that guy, and I'm going to give some of it back and go hide it. Is that a good idea? Somebody would have said, dude, you got your me glasses on. That's stupid. You look dumb, and your decision making is just a little off here. See, community help, because you always want to hide when you're in greed. In fact, Ecclesiastes 4:9 says this, 2 people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. 3 are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. And so we need people in our life who've developed a habit of being truthful. In fact, I think everybody needs to sit at least one table. I tell pastors this. I speak to pastors every week. and I speak at conferences and stuff, and I tell them that everybody needs to sit at least one table with a group of people who love you but are not impressed with you. You understand what I'm saying? You need people that love you, but they have the ability to say, dude, that's me glasses you got on there. You know? It's probably not a good idea because it's greed, and what it'll do is it'll destroy you and your family. And then here's the third thing. The third thing, this is so important, is you need to learn to practice generosity. Learn to practice generosity as an antidote to greed. To protect myself from greed, need to make room for generosity. God knew that we'd be tempted toward greed. He knew the consequences would be devastating. So in the Old Testament, if you just read it, he sets up a system of generosity for people to counteract greed. The first thing of everything, when you grow crops or you get something given to you, he says, you need to give it away or redeem it. You bring it to the temple, and you either give it away or you redeem it. You can only harvest your fields once, he said in the Old Testament. In other words, if stuff was left, you couldn't go back and pick it up. You had to leave it there for strangers and those who don't have enough. He said, always set an extra plate for strangers because he wanted to establish generous habits to counteract greed. Look at this next verse. Generous people plan to do what is generous. They plan. It's not just, I feel generous today. I'm going to be generous. No, they plan. Generous people plan to do what is generous, and they stand firm in their generosity. Why does it say they stand firm in their generosity? Because it's going to get tested. It's going to get tested. Do you have a regular habit and a plan of giving God the first fruits in your life? Debbie and I think we're up to like almost 70% of the people in our church give online, which I think is good. We're still old school. We do everything else online. I got to learn to do this where it would be right, but we want to write the very first check that we get. When we get our check every couple of weeks, the very first check we want to write to the church in order to demonstrate to us that we're obedient. I want to find, because greed gets a grip on my heart so easily. So an antidote is just to give. Do you do that? Do you give the very first part of your income to God? If not, greed's probably at work in your life, and the consequences are devastating. Now, if you have a plan, there will be times when you'll need to stand firm. Here's two times. Generosity will be tested by greed. When I don't have enough, when there's famine, I don't have enough, and when I receive more than enough, when there's a windfall. When there's a famine, I feel like I can't give. I can't be generous to the church, to my family, to people around me, so I don't have enough. That'll test your heart. And then when you get a windfall, I don't know how many times I've prayed with people that God would bless them, and they found it easy to be generous with this small amount, but when the number is like 400,000 or 4 million, it's like, oh, wow. I don't know if I can, that's a lot of money to give. That's when your heart will be tested. Elisha was generous. Gehazi was greedy. It was interesting. I'll kind of close up with this. When Naaman came to Elisha and he had $4 million and he wanted to give it to him, it would have been okay for him to receive that. God's not against you receiving gifts and blessing you. That would have been fine. But what he didn't know, maybe God had shown him this, that maybe God said to him, Naaman, I want you to give this one away. I'll take care of you. Don't worry about me. And Naaman knew that. He wasn't a greedy guy, so he was able to trust God with the future. I'll take care of that. But this guy, there's something going on in his life right now that he doesn't need to give that to you. He just needs to trust me on some stuff, and you need to trust me. And now's not the time to be taking. And because Naaman, greed didn't have a grip on him, he could listen to God. Maybe God had a bigger lesson than a paycheck for Elisha. Because greed didn't rule his life, he could hear God. Didn't have the me goggles on. So what about you? Are you generous like Elisha or greedy like Gehazi? How often do you wear the me goggles? Okay? I want you to examine your hearts. I really do. Because it's important. Greed will consume you. It'll make you say things and do things you don't ordinarily do. You'll start hiding. It destroys community. Ultimately, it'll ruin your life and those around you. So come to Jesus. This message is so important. Come to Jesus. We're going to have a response time. We're going to have a response time. What we're going to do is I'm going to pray for you, and then you're going to ask God 2 questions. God, what are you saying to me, and what am I going to do about it? Okay? Those 2 questions. What are you saying to me? Today, God may be just saying some stuff about greed. And what I'd love to see you do is to say, God, I surrender everything to you. Maybe you've already done that. It's time to do it again. You know, the problem with living sacrifices, present yourself as living sacrifices, they crawl off the altar. You know what I mean? So I got to crawl back up very, very regularly, especially in this area, and recommit it to God. Maybe you want to go to a cross. You know what'll be very disappointing to me? There's a cross over here somewhere. If that's empty and clean all day long, that means this message didn't get to anybody. I might as well have stayed in Charleston. This message didn't get to anybody. Go to God. Say, God, I don't want greed to have any kind of grip on my life whatsoever. I give you my stuff. I see that I'm too much into me, or it's got a grip in this area. God, I just give it. Lord, I'm re-upping right now. Everything is yours. I just want to be a steward, a good steward of what you have. The Bible says you can't outgive God. Don't worry about that. Trust Him with the future. Trust Him with today. Others of us, we're going to go to the candles. We're going to pray for a friend, maybe that the power of Jesus, the light of the Holy Spirit would just come into their lives. We're going to receive communion together. There are people that would love to pray for you. We'll be along the side walls. The offering boxes, maybe we would just want to, maybe today's your day to start giving back to God. Maybe that hasn't been a habit to you. Whatever it is, whatever God's saying to you, just say, God, I want to do it to you. God, I thank you for your kingdom. Thank you for this beautiful group of people who love you, who are in tune with you. And today, God, we receive your warning on greed. We want to hear what Jesus has to say. God, we want to be free from greed, full of love and generosity. In your name we